We're halfway through August already, and the transfer window's final curtain is slowly beginning to fall. Yet here we are, Celtic still with business to do, still with gaps to fill, and still with questions hanging in the air. It's not the whirlwind of movement some fans might have expected, and to be honest, it's all feeling a bit quiet, suspiciously quiet. And while transfer talk usually dominates the headlines this time of year, today things are taking a different route. There's a different kind of tension in the air, one that has less to do with who might be arriving and everything to do with who we're facing next. Because now we know exactly who stands between Celtic and a place in the Champions League group stages. FC Kairat of Kazakhstan. Yep, that's the side that knocked out Slovan Bratislava in a dramatic penalty shootout, despite being on the brink of elimination. Slovan were 3-1 up in the shootout at home and still managed to bottle it. Kairat held their nerve, scored their last 3, and now they're on their way to Celtic Park. Wild scenes, even wilder when you throw in Vladimir Weiss, former Rangers man, squaring up to the ref and getting himself sent off after full time. You really couldn't script it. Now for some, the reaction to drawing Kairat was bordering on panic. Words like nightmare scenario were being thrown around online, as if we'd drawn peak Barcelona instead of a team from Kazakhstan. Let's just calm down for a second. It's not ideal, no? Long flights, strange kickoff times, potentially brutal conditions, but it's not a disaster either. In fact, if you roll it back a couple of months and look at a possible playoff, opponents we could have faced, clubs like Bodo, Glimt, or Copenhagen, Kairat starts looking like one of the more favorable outcomes. It's a tough tie, but it's not the apocalypse some are making it out to be. Let's break this down. The first leg is next Wednesday, under the lights of Celtic Park, 8 o'clock kickoff. The second leg is the following Tuesday in Almaty. Now, that's where things get tricky. For starters, it's over 6,000 kilometers away. That's a 7-hour flight minimum. And this isn't some hop across Europe to play in Italy or Germany. This is a journey into Central Asia with all the time zones and travel fatigue. That comes with it. But here's something that's gone under the radar a bit. While we're all panicking about our own travel plans, Kairat have to do the exact same. And if anything, the time difference actually hits them harder. Think about it. Celtic are used to 8 o'clock kickoffs. 4 o'clock back home, no problem. But for Kairat, that's midnight in Kazakhstan. Their bodies will be screaming for sleep before the match even kicks off. And if history tells us anything, it's that Celtic have a habit of scoring late goals in these types of ties. James Forrest against Shakhtar Karagandhi, Moussa Dembele against Astana, and so on. There's something about Kazakh teams at Celtic. Park and Celtic finding a late spark. That could be huge. And let's talk about Kairat's home form. It's strong, worryingly strong. This season, they've gone unbeaten at home in Europe. Shutouts against the champions of Slovakia, Finland, and Slovenia. No goals conceded. They're compact, organized, and clearly thriving on their own turf. But look at the other side of that coin. Away from home, they're a different beast. Or maybe not a beast at all. 1 win their last 13 away games in European competitions. 9 defeats. That's not the kind of form that suggests they're going to march into Celtic Park and cause chaos. So the mission for Celtic is clear. Get a result at home. Not just a draw, not just a cautious 1-0. They need a lead, a cushion, something to hold on to in Almaty, because that second leg is going to be a challenge. The climate, the pitch, the atmosphere, none of it's going to be comfortable. And let's not forget it's August in Almaty. That means 30 plus degrees, even in the evenings. You might get lucky with a bit of shade or a drop in temperature as the sun sets. But it's still going to be muggy, it's going to be draining, and it's going to be far from ideal for a group of players who are more used to the drizzle of Glasgow than the dry heat of Central Asia. The travel itself is a massive factor. 14 hours round trip on a plane, and that's assuming a direct flight. Thankfully, the club's not exactly sending a squad on Ryanair. Private jets, flat beds, whatever comforts they can manage, they'll have them. But still, it takes its toll, physically, mentally, and then throw in the fact that 5 days after returning from that marathon trip, Celtic are walking into Ibrox for the first Old Firm derby of the season. That adds a whole other layer. You got this massive European tie, one that defines the early part of the season, and straight after it, arguably the biggest domestic fixture of the calendar. High stakes, high pressure, no margin for error. And of course, we've seen before that those Kazakhstan trips have a bit of a hangover effect. Go back to 2013, drew with Inverness after coming back from Karagandhi. 2016, it was Barcelona in a friendly, fair enough. 2017, dropped points at home to St. Johnstone after playing Astana. There's definitely a pattern there, and while Celtic have that 5-day cushion this time around, Rangers aren't exactly lounging around with their feet up either. They're playing Club Brugge away in the same week, only on the Wednesday. So in terms of preparation, rest, and recovery, there's not a huge gap. Both clubs are facing European tests. Both clubs will have had to rotate, manage fitness, and deal with the fixture congestion. So really, it comes down to which squad is better prepared, mentally and physically. And just when you think the schedule's tough enough, there was a little twist in the tail this week involving Rangers. Remember, under the new SPFL rules, clubs can request to postpone their league fixture between European playoff legs. Rangers did exactly that. They asked to move their match against St. Mirren. Fine, fair enough. Then suddenly they pulled a U-turn, request withdrawn, match back on. What happened? Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. See, when Rangers decided to postpone, it meant Celtic would still play Livingston that weekend. And with the way the points were stacking up, Celtic had a chance to win and go into Ibrox 7 points clear. Yes, with a game more played, but still. The psychological blow of being 7 points behind before a derby? Not something Rangers were ready to deal with. So what did they do? Panic, backtrack, decide they'd rather play the St. Mirren game after all, just to make sure they don't. Give Celtic that kind of breathing room. That more than anything shows how much pressure is simmering across the city. Compare that to Celtic's stance. No drama, no postponement requests, just play the games. Handle the schedule, get the job done. And that's the mindset that needs to carry into this playoff. No excuses, no distractions. Kairat might be awkward, but they're not unbeatable. Travel might be long, but it's not unique to us. Celtic have done this before. They've handled this kind of challenge before. What matters now is whether this squad, this current version of Celtic, can rise to the moment. And look, we all know the squad's still short. Reinforcements are needed. That's not even up for debate. But with the first leg coming up fast and registration deadlines looming, it looks more and more likely that the players we have now are the ones who will carry us into this crucial tie. There's still a slim chance of new signings being registered by the Tuesday deadline, but to be honest, that's feeling increasingly unlikely. It's frustrating, no doubt about that. The summers felt slow, reactive rather than proactive. And when you've got a Champions League group stage on the line, you can't afford to be dragging your feet. So the stakes are massive. Win this tie and the club secures not just elite European football, but the kind of financial injection and prestige that shapes a whole season. Lose it, and well, brace yourselves. Because the noise is only going to get louder. And while all eyes are locked onto the Champions League playoff against Kairat, there's a storm quietly brewing in the background. It's the kind of slow, simmering unrest that Celtic fans know all too well. The transfer window is ticking away. The clock is getting louder with every passing day, and yet the squad still looks thin, incomplete, vulnerable. There's been talk all summer about strengthening key positions, building depth, preparing properly for a demanding season that involves domestic pressure and the Champions League if all goes well. But the reality? The reality is starting to look a lot like last season's frustrations creeping back in. Let's not sugarcoat it. This has been at best a sluggish transfer window. And the frustration isn't just about the lack of quantity. It's about clarity. It's about the fact that nobody seems entirely sure what the plan is. There have been names thrown about. Ballack, Wisher, Braham, Montano, Obert, but nothing concrete. No movement, no sense of momentum. It feels like every few days we get the same recycled chatter, paper talk that never materializes into actual signings. And that's fine in June. It's even tolerable in July. But now we're in mid-August, on the edge of a crucial European tie, and the squad is what it is. There's no hiding from it anymore. It's even more frustrating when you look at the kind of signings we could have made. Take the Lennon Miller situation. That's done and dusted now. The young Motherwell midfielder has officially joined Udinese for what's being called a club record fee, reportedly £4.7 million plus add-ons. Now that's a significant fee for a Scottish teenager, but it's hardly out of Celtic's reach. It's not some wild number that would have broken the bank, and yet the club never really entered the race. They looked, they scouted, maybe asked a few questions, but that was it. No bid, no push, no real interest. Just silence. And he's gone now. Now, of course, you can argue whether he'd fit into the current midfield. Paulo Bernardo, for instance, is barely getting a sniff at the moment. So where would Miller fit in? But that's the point, isn't it? You don't wait until someone becomes a nailed-on starter to buy them. You buy them because you believe in their ceiling, in their potential, because you think they're going to become something special. Lennon Miller has that kind of buzz. And now we're watching another promising young Scottish talent head abroad because Celtic once again were passive. If he goes on to have the kind of career many expect, don't be surprised if the comparisons to John McGinn start cropping up again. That same feeling of what if hanging in the air. And the thing is, this isn't a one-off. It's becoming a pattern. Whether it's hesitation, poor negotiation, or just a lack of decisiveness, Celtic have been here before. They flirted with players, waited too long, missed the boat. And with this current squad, that kind of indecision could be costly. Because let's be real, the margins are thin this season. Rangers aren't some unbeatable juggernaut, but they've strengthened. They've added depth. They look like a club that understands the urgency of the moment. Meanwhile, Celtic are still trying to figure out their best 11, still hoping injuries don't pile up, still talking about the possibility of signings rather than announcing them. And the thing that makes it worse is the silence. Fans aren't expecting every move to be public. We all know how modern transfers work, but there's a line between keeping things quiet and giving the impression that nothing's happening. And right now it's leaning heavily towards the latter. The club's strategy, if there is one, feels unclear. Are we targeting experience? Are we looking for projects? Are we gambling on potential resale value again? Or are we finally trying to build a squad that's ready to compete in Europe? Because those things aren't all compatible. You can't plan for tomorrow and ignore today. Not when the Champions League is on the line. Not when the derby is around the corner. Not when the supporters are looking at the bench and wondering where the goals are coming from if the starting 11 isn't firing. And that's before we even touch on the European registration issue. So the squad list for the playoff tie has to be submitted by Thursday night, 11 o'clock sharp. That's the official UEFA deadline. But of course, there's that little caveat. Clubs are allowed to add up to 2 new players until the night before the first leg, again at 11 o'clock. So yes, technically there's still a window, tiny as it is, for last-minute signings to be added to the squad. But let's not kid ourselves. Does anyone genuinely believe that Celtic are going to pull off 2 signings in the next few days, get them registered, integrated, and ready to play? It feels more like fantasy than expectation at this point. And the thing is, the fans aren't asking for miracles. No one's demanding 5 world-class players overnight, but they want intent. They want urgency. They want to see a club that understands the stakes. Right now, the feeling is more passive. Like Celtic are waiting to see what happens in the playoff before deciding how ambitious they should be. But that's backwards. The ambition has to come first. That's how you win the tie. That's how you make the group stage. You don't hedge your bets and hope the players you've got will drag you through. You prepare properly. You give the manager the tools he needs, and you show the dressing room that the club is serious about success. Because make no mistake, if Celtic falls short in this playoff, the mood will turn quickly. The goodwill, the patience, the benefit of the doubt. It only lasts so long. Supporters have seen this film before. They know how it ends. A lack of investment, a sluggish start, early elimination, and then a frantic scramble in the final week of the window to plug holes that should have been filled months ago. It's a story that's played out too many times, and frankly, is getting harder and harder to excuse. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the club, it's not all doom and gloom. Celtic B had a solid night in the newly reformatted Challenge Cup, now bizarrely named the KDM Evolution Cup. Played against Clyde, a 3-1 win, with some encouraging performances from familiar faces. Callum Osman was involved early, earning a red card for a Clyde defender and then opening the scoring himself. Sean McCardo and Samuel Izaguzu added the others, while Clyde pulled one back in the second half. All in all, a strong outing for a side that might see a few of its members push closer to the first team as the season unfolds, especially if the senior squad continues to lack depth. There was also a little bit of nostalgia, or perhaps shock, when news broke that Dedrick Boyata has officially retired from football at just 34. The former Celtic defender has already jumped into coaching, taking on an assistant role with the Belgian under-21 squad. Feels like just yesterday he was marshalling the backline at Celtic Park. Time moves quick. Boyata was a player who divided opinion at times, but when he was on his game, he was solid. It's always strange when someone you watched in their prime so recently calls it a day. And on the topic of former boys, there's Ismaila Soro. Remember him? The energetic, if erratic midfielder who couldn't quite nail down a regular role at Parkhead. Well, he's resurfaced in Scotland, of all places, currently on trial at Falkirk, trying to earn a move after leaving Beitar Jerusalem. You've got to admire the hustle. Clearly still wants to play, and while he's not exactly what Celtic need now, there was always a decent enough player in there, just not quite at the level required for a club chasing European nights and domestic glory. Now, one other thing to flag before we wrap this bit up: officiating. The referee for the Kairat home leg has been confirmed. Lloyd Wilson is taking charge at Celtic Park, supported by assistants Chris Ray and Graham McNeely, and on VAR, our old friend John Beaton. That's going to go down well, isn't it? David Room is the assistant VAR. We'll see how that one plays out. Hopefully we're not talking about refereeing decisions come full time. But given how things tend to go in Europe, don't be surprised if VAR ends up center stage again. All in all, we're entering a defining stretch of the season. Everything is converging at once. The playoff, the transfer window, the derby. Celtic are walking a tightrope, and there's not much room for error. The performances need to be sharp. The squad needs reinforcement, and the decisions made off the pitch over the next fortnight could shape the next 4 or 5 months. Champions League group stage football brings in money, yes, but it also brings a level of competition and visibility that Celtic must embrace if they want to grow as a club. Getting there should be a non-negotiable. It has to happen, but it won't happen by accident. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There have been quiet murmurings around the east end of Glasgow this week, the sort of whispers that don't yet make the back pages but echo through the pubs and supporters' buses all the same. Brendan Rodgers, the Celtic manager, in his second spell at the helm, is said to be reconsidering his attacking options, and the name that keeps coming up is Kyogo Furuhashi. The Japanese striker, adored by many in the stands for his sharp movement and knack for scoring in big matches, has reportedly fallen slightly out of favor. The chatter isn't about a sudden drop in form. His goal return remains respectable. But more about how Rodgers envisions his forward line in the months ahead. Sources close to the club suggest the manager wants a more physically imposing presence up top. Someone who can hold the ball under pressure and link more directly with the wide players. That, they say, is where the mismatch lies. While no official statement has been made, the mood around Lennoxtown has been described as tense, with Furuhashi's body language and training raising eyebrows among those who have been watching him closely. It's still only talk, but talk that refuses to go away. In many ways, this rumor has taken people by surprise. When Rodgers returned to Celtic Park, one of the apparent certainties was that he'd relish working with a forward as mobile and intelligent as Furuhashi. Under previous managers, the striker had been the spearhead of a fluid attacking unit, darting between defenders and thriving on quick, incisive passes from midfield. Supporters remember his goals in derbies, in cup finals, in European nights, where the odds were against them. Yet whispers from within the training ground suggest Rodgers' tactical preferences have shifted subtly since his first spell in charge. There's talk of a more pragmatic approach, a greater emphasis on aerial duels and physicality, especially against teams who sit deep. Furuhashi, for all his movement, isn't known for dominating in the air or muscling past center halves. Some close to the squad claim this is less about his individual ability and more about Rodgers wanting a stylistic change to cope with certain domestic and European challenges. Whatever the reasoning, the perception that one of the team's most beloved figures might be on borrowed time has caught many off guard, sparking debates about loyalty versus evolution in the squad's makeup. The rumor's persistence owes much to the way Rodgers has been rotating his squad lately. Observers have noted that Furuhashi has been substituted earlier in matches, and sometimes even started from the bench in fixtures where he would once have been a guaranteed starter. This, combined with cryptic remarks from Rodgers about needing variety in attack, has only fueled speculation. Some insiders claim the manager has already sounded out potential replacements with a shortlist that reportedly includes strikers from the English Championship and continental Europe. Agents are said to be making discreet inquiries, testing the waters ahead of the January window. While the official club line remains that all players are valued and competition for places is healthy, the shift in selection patterns has been hard to ignore. Fans, always quick to pick up on the subtlest signs, have begun to wonder if these are the first steps in a managed transition, moving on from one era of the attack to another. It's a delicate balance for Rodgers, who must weigh the short-term benefits of change against the potential backlash of letting go of a player who has delivered time and again on the big stage. Complicating matters further is the strong bond between Furuhashi and the Celtic supporters. He has become more than just a goal scorer. He's a figure who embodies a certain joy in the way Celtic play. His celebrations, his connection with the crowd, even his willingness to adapt to life in Scotland, all have made him a fan favorite. Letting go of such a player is never purely a footballing decision. It's a cultural one too, with repercussions that ripple far beyond the pitch. There's a fear among some within the club that any move to sideline or sell him could alienate a section of the fan base, especially if results falter afterwards. Rodgers, no stranger to navigating the politics of a big club, is said to be acutely aware of this dynamic. Yet those who know him best describe him as pragmatic to the core, willing to take unpopular decisions if he believes they serve the team's long-term interests. The tension, therefore, lies in the uncertainty. Is this merely a phase in squad rotation, or is it the beginning of the end for Furuhashi's time in green and white? As the rumor grows, so does the anxiety around what's to come. For now, Furuhashi remains a Celtic player, turning up to training, engaging with teammates, and performing when called upon. Yet the undercurrent of speculation has made his every appearance subject to extra scrutiny. A missed chance is now dissected as a sign of decline, a goal is interpreted as a plea to stay. The January transfer window looms like a shadow over the situation, offering both an escape route and a moment of reckoning. If the chatter is true, and Rodgers genuinely sees the future of his attack without the Japanese forward, then the coming weeks may be about positioning, both for the club in finding a buyer or replacement, and for Furuhashi in deciding whether to fight for his place or seek a new challenge. As with so many stories in Scottish football, the truth is layered, part fact and part theatre. And until something concrete happens, the rumour will live on in the terraces, the forums, and the late-night debates in Glasgow's bars. A story too compelling to ignore and too uncertain to resolve. Hello, fan, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.